From Diggory Martin, please.
Should the Liberal Democrat voter feel betrayed that their vote is being used to prop up a Conservative government?
Should the Liberal Democrat voter feel betrayed? Mehdi Hassan.
I woke up on Wednesday morning and I wasn't sure what to be more distraught about. The fact that there was a Conservative Party leader inside number 10 Downing Street for the first time since I was a teenager, or the fact that the Liberal Democrats, a party that I've long admired from afar, helped him get through the door. I think Liberal Democrat voters, Labour voters who voted for Liberal Democrat MPs in swing seats, in three-way marginals, in Tory Lib Dem marginals...
As they were persuaded to by senior Labour figures?
By Labour figures, yes, and by Liberal Democrat candidates who said, vote for us to keep the Tory out. I live in a three-way marginal. I was almost tempted to vote Liberal Democrat. Thank God I didn't. I would have regretted it for the whole of my life. I think the Liberal Democrats owe an apology to all of those voters, and I would argue the majority of those voters who voted for the Liberal Democrats thinking they were voting for a progressive party, not a party that would jump into bed with a right-wing Conservative government.
Simon Hughes.
That was a bit of a predictable Mehdi answer.
Why
the
was
answer
it
they should,
predictable?
well, because people shouldn't have a simplistic view as that, with respect. And to the friend who asked the question, the answer is you shouldn't feel betrayed, and nor should other colleagues. And I'll tell you why. More than 6 million people voted for us. They voted for a centre-left progressive party. We set out our agenda. We set out, in particular, 4 areas of policy: a fairer Britain in terms of taxation, a fairer Britain in terms of the investment in a future that gives jobs, particularly in a green economy, a better start in life in schools, and a complete change for the political system that has failed. And contrary to all expectation, when the votes were cast and there wasn't an overall majority for any party and there was a balance, and there had to be responsible decision-making by us, and we followed what we said we'd do, which was to talk to the party which had the largest number of votes and seats first, and then talk to Labour, we discovered, and it surprised me amazingly, that the Tory party were more willing to adopt the political agenda that we had in our manifesto than the Labour Party were.
What a load.
And I can be very specific about it, because I followed at close quarters every stage of the proceedings. We had the report back from our negotiators on every occasion. I talked to friends in the Labour Party, including people involved in the negotiation. And when we went to talk to them about, for example, taking the people earning under 10,000 out of tax altogether, or whether they would go further on electoral reform, or whether they would go further on other key issues, the answer is they couldn't, or they wouldn't. And worse, they said they didn't think they could deliver their parliamentary party through the lobbies to do that.
You're muttering there.
This is absolute nonsense. Are you saying the Tories went further than Labour on electoral reform? Perhaps you should check your document. The Tories are going to campaign against the electoral reform referendum that you're going to have. Your own partners in government are going to say, all right, here's a referendum, by the way, we're opposed to it, and you're going to be on your own.
No. The Tories committed themselves, they moved to commit themselves to a referendum bill in Parliament, supported on a 3-line whip in both houses.
On a non-proportional system?
On the next step, the only system that Labour had offered as well, which was the alternative vote, which isn't proportional but is a next step. But the Labour negotiators told us that they didn't think they could deliver all of their people
and you'd have preferred a Labour set-up. Would you have preferred a Labour?
If there could have been a secure majority with a progressive coalition with Labour, that's where I would have come from.
That's two questions, but I mean, the figures don't stack up.
No, the figures didn't stack up.
As with the Conservatives, but you would have preferred to be with Labour.
The more logical,
if they'd been nice to you.
No, it's not about being nice to us. The more logical coalition would have been the forces of the left and the centre. The more logical coalition. But in the event, Labour didn't deliver.
All right, Lord
and in the event, the Tories have delivered.
Why did Labour fail to deliver?
We were rejected by the electorate. We couldn't form a government. I think the Liberal Democrats were right to do something with the Tories. I think there is a significant element of betrayal, though, in what the Liberal Democrats have done. Just go to the BBC website, which analyses the coalition deal that's been done, and on most major issues, it says Tories win again. It's a very Tory deal that has been done. The one area where it is said it's not a Tory deal is in relation to, quote, political reform. What the Liberal Democrats have been given is an Act of Parliament that will allow for a referendum on alternative votes, which is not proportional representation It's something else. And as Mehdi is saying, all the Conservatives will campaign against it and it will be rejected in a referendum.
So do you think Labour should have done their best to get the Lib Dems in with them?
No, I don't think we could.
No.
I think we lost the election. I think we've been quite wrong to do it. I think it was for the Liberal Democrats to do the best deal that they could. The deal they've got, which they're saying is such a wonderful deal, is a Tory deal. That's all.
OK. The woman here on the right.
All the polls before the...
Hold on a second, just, yeah.
All the polls before the election were saying it was likely to be a hung parliament. Isn't it incredibly arrogant and frankly stupid for the Lib Dem supporters to automatically assume that Lib Dems would prop up a Labour government?
Melanie Phillips.
Well, I think it is not right to think that as an assumption, but I can understand why Liberal Democrat voters would feel betrayed. In a way, everyone's been betrayed because no one voted for what we've got. No one voted for a coalition government. No one voted for both parties in government to basically tear up much of their manifestos. But on the other hand, the Lib Dems have been until this point historic losers. A vote for them was always a wasted vote. Now, for the first time, they're actually in government. They can actually get some of their manifesto commitments through. OK, they've junked some, but they can get through. And I think it's more than they deserve, quite frankly, because, look, they've got 5 cabinet seats for 57 constituencies that they've won, and they actually lost seats.
And nearly a quarter of the vote.
They have
nearly a quarter of the vote.
Something like 3/4 of the population either voted against them or didn't vote for them. Very, very few people voted for the Liberal Democrats.
A quarter of the population, Melanie, voted for the Liberal Democrats.
3/4 did not.
Yes.
And for that, they have 5 cabinet... For that, they have 5 cabinet seats.
Are you saying they should be grateful for what they've got, the Liberal Democrats,
I think
and not feel betrayed? Is that what you're saying?
Well, the Liberal Democrats should have a more reasoned view that they should feel grateful for what they've got because they are in government through guile and stitch-up and all the rest of it, but they are in government with their feet under the table. The people who should feel really betrayed are the Conservatives. The Conservatives did not win an overall majority, true, but they were the largest party. And nevertheless, some 10 million people voted for them. Those people who voted Conservative do not have a Conservative government. They have a Cleggeroon government.
All right. We'll come to the Conservatives in a moment, Melanie. We'll just stick with this one for the moment. Yes, you do get a chance in just a second. Yes, you do.